Sup, y'all, and welcome to Foundations of Civilization, Part 5. Today we're going to take a look at the pre-globalized world by first looking at the classical era. Of the three supercontinents, the great world island of Eurasia contained perhaps more than 3/4 of the world's population by the classical era. Africa, connected to Eurasia, possessed approximately 10% of the global population at that time, whereas the Americas contained around half that. Most empires are multinational states, containing several different groups of people of varying cultures. A good example of a multinational state in early 6th century BCE was the Persian Empire, which was arguably the largest and most powerful empire at that time. It was highly centralized, whose kings possessed almost absolute power. Around the same time, Greece emerged as a great power and the foundation of Western civilization, as well as the birthplace of democracy. It was almost a mirror image of Persia, consisting of several small city-states. One of the key contributors to their differences, as is often the case, boiled down to geography. Persia's centralized government and its contiguous land-based empire was in stark contrast to the fragmented Greek city-states that often acted autonomously. This made Greece a multi-state nation, one people with a common language and ancestry, but separated into different states. That is, until the time of Alexander the Great, who conquered lands for Greece from the Mediterranean into Egypt and Anatolia, further east into Afghanistan, and ultimately into India. Connecting so much territory led to a massive rise in trade and the diffusion or spread of many cultures. Now the Greeks and Persians clashed, but most empires of the era were regional with respect to their power and influence. One of these empires, ancient Rome, began as a small city-state on the Italian peninsula around the 8th century BCE. Influenced by Greek culture, Roman aristocrats established a republic where power resided with elected representatives. The Romans connected their empire through a massive transportation network, and this greatly reduced distance decay between cities, meaning it increased the pace of interaction. Due to overexpansion and corruption, in the 4th century CE, the empire split between Rome in the west and the Byzantine Empire in the east. Over in East Asia, China had fallen from its original power for centuries. However, by the early 3rd century BCE, a more unified Chinese state returned under the Han Dynasty. During this time, China arguably became the most sophisticated civilization in the world. Around 600 BCE, new civilizations took shape in South Asia along the Ganges River in what is now northern India. What emerged was a politically fragmented and culturally diverse region of towns and cities. While a great deal of sophistication was attained, most of the time India wasn't controlled by any singular state or empire. Some empires, however, did emerge in northern and western Africa, such as the Nubians in modern-day Sudan. But a different set of societies emerged in sub-Saharan Africa. An agriculturally based group of Bantu-speaking people assimilated or eliminated many competing hunter-gatherer groups. Major cities rarely formed in this vast region, likely due to the fact that the more interactions there are between people, the more rapidly a contagious disease can spread. The main vectors or carriers of these diseases are often mosquitoes that mate and lay their eggs near water. Because of their environment, the Bantu lived in smaller communities, distancing themselves from rivers to reduce disease. So, by not establishing so-called civilizations, they achieved a much more successful means of survival. In the Americas, a few civilizations and strong empires did emerge in places like Mexico, for example. One of the most sophisticated civilizations were the Maya, who developed their own written language and mathematics, which allowed them to irrigate and terrace the land, as well as build massive structures. Civilizations also developed in modern-day Peru, and although they were very sophisticated, trade did not develop with their northern neighbors, due to the north-south orientation of the continents, as well as the narrow stretch of land by modern-day Panama. Africa also had a major barrier to trade due to the Sahara Desert, as well as their north-south orientation. Another significant innovation during the classical era was religion, which was based on the common human notion that deities, or gods, do in fact exist. Many religions were animistic, believing that inanimate objects possess spirits. Their beliefs were also often shamanistic, in which a medicine man or shaman would perceive and interact with the spirit world. And many of these early religions were polytheistic, believing in multiple gods. Some civilizations, such as the Greeks, became more secular, separating political and scientific institutions from religious ones. Many in these civilizations increasingly relied on rationalism, regarding reason based on logic and facts as the leading source of knowledge. One of the earliest monotheistic religions, with one god, was Zoroastrianism, which was launched from the teachings of the Persian prophet Zarathustra. Zoroastrianism remained a cultural religion specific to the people of the region. It was not a universalizing or proselytizing religion in which the followers actively seek to convert unbelievers by spreading their faith. Another monotheistic and cultural religion that emerged and grew around the same time was Judaism, that traced its ancestry to Abraham. Due in part to their location along the Mediterranean, the Jews often experienced persecution and captivity. The Romans razed Jerusalem in 70 CE, causing a Jewish diaspora, or dispersion. A religion that would have an enormous impact in Europe and beyond, Christianity, sprung from the Abrahamic traditions of Judaism and the Jewish prophet Jesus. This universalizing religion spread throughout the Middle East during the Classical era. Another religion with Abrahamic roots was Islam, founded by Muhammad in the 7th century CE. Islam, another universalizing religion, diffused from its main hearth in Arabia throughout the Middle East, North Africa, across the Indian Ocean, and into modern-day Indonesia. A cultural religion that virtually became synonymous with Chinese culture was Confucianism, that followed the teachings of Confucius in the 6th and 5th centuries BCE. Morality was emphasized, as was education. His teachings also influenced China into becoming more of a patriarchal society. Another cultural religion that emerged in China was Taoism, influenced by Lao Tzu's writing in the 6th century BCE. Different from Confucianism, education was de-emphasized. Family life and simplicity was promoted. Both philosophies strongly influenced Chinese tradition, but primarily remained isolated within China. Hinduism, another cultural religion, grew out of the fragmented Indian civilization along the Indus River Valley around 2000 BCE. It spread throughout the Indian subcontinent, but not much beyond. Buddhism, an offshoot of Hinduism, was founded by Prince Siddhartha Gautama around the end of the 6th century BCE. Being a universalizing religion, Buddhism diffused into East and Southeast Asia, strongly influencing the traditions in these regions. The Classical era is important to have some familiarity with, because most of the world's religions of today can trace their origins to this era. Furthermore, many current countries have their cultural roots in the empires of this time, several of which were declining or collapsing, and paving the way for a new era to take hold.
That is correct.